990 AM, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg. When the WWF took on the WWE, the Panda pinned the wrestler. When a storm slammed the stereo store, a best place to buy was born. And then Smokey Philip Morris butted out his name. Tornadoes and lawsuits, why companies changed their names, on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly, Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
You know the feeling of finding a really good podcast? Or the feeling of someone always being there, like your favorite radio show? Stream CBC Podcasts, CBC Music, and CBC Radio anytime, anywhere. Download the CBC Listen app for...
This is CBC News. Good afternoon. I'm Josh Crabb in Winnipeg. At noon, it's mainly sunny and 13 downtown. It's mainly sunny and 13 in Brandon as well. It's 4 in Thompson. The province of Manitoba and business leaders are coming together to help create more affordable housing. Premier Wab Kinew says the province is providing $10 million in seed money to support a new investment trust fund. It will be known as the Collaborative Housing Alliance Real Estate Investment Trust. Nonprofits and other groups can access the fund and the development experts in it to create affordable housing. Bram Strain is the president and CEO of the Business Council of Manitoba.
This is about our community. This is about taking care of our province, our citizens of our province, the whole bit. So it's, I guess the flip side of that is it helps with reputation. It makes for a healthier work or a community, a safer community for all of us. But most importantly, it's to help people.
Strain says the trust should be established fairly quickly and will allow groups to convert or renovate existing buildings or to build new. Meanwhile, Ottawa has announced some changes to mortgage rules aimed at building more housing. Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland says the government will allow homeowners to refinance insured mortgages so they can build secondary suites in their homes. Freeland says homeowners will be able to use up to 90% of their home value, amortized over 30 years.
We see this as a measure which goes alongside other measures that we've put in place, designed for the big builders to get more homes built faster, to get more rental units built.
Freeland also announced consultations with other levels of government about implementing vacant land taxes. She believes that would provide an incentive to landowners to build homes. Winnipeg police have launched a new Manitoba's Most Wanted website as a way to take more violent offenders off the streets. It's part of the Manitoba Integrated Violent Offender Apprehension Unit, a partnership between Winnipeg Police and RCMP. RCMP Major Crimes Inspector Sean Pike says it has been using social media to get the word out about some of the people they're looking for. He says it's been very effective.
Well, we've had occasions where a parent will drive a wanted individual to the detachment so that they can turn themselves in. We've also had an individual walk into one of our detachments, show our officers on their phone the RCMP Facebook page, asking to be arrested so that the post of them can be taken down.
The apprehension unit hopes the addition of the website will increase the number of people it is able to arrest. Since May of 2023, the unit has arrested close to 500 people. 25,000 healthcare support workers in Manitoba are on the job today, not on the picket line. It came right down to the wire with QP and MGEU setting a strike deadline of 6 this morning, but a tentative agreement was reached at 4:25. QP President Gina McKay says they are recommending to members what they call a substantial agreement, saying it will improve wages and working conditions to retain and recruit more people to those jobs.
We hope that this can bring people up enough that they don't have to work 2 to 3 jobs and that they can, do the extracurriculars and buy the groceries that they need and ensure that they have housing security. And so when we're recommending the deal, we're recognizing that this does value and bring workers up.
McKay says online information sessions will be held, followed by a vote on the tentative agreement in the coming days. Shared Health says for most patients, residents, and home care clients, services will continue today as planned. However, patients and clients whose appointments or surgeries were postponed in anticipation of a strike may still experience some disruption. Work to reschedule affected appointments will happen in the coming days. A spokesperson for Shared Health says they no longer anticipate the volume of 250 canceled surgeries planned in the event of a strike. Premier Wab Kinew says he was elated to hear a healthcare support worker strike was averted.
Jumped out of bed this morning saying it's good news for the healthcare system, so we're really happy for all the hard work, and we respect the folks on the other side of the table there. The best deals are arrived at through negotiation, so just want to say thanks to our partners in this dance.
Kinew won't discuss, the details of the tentative agreement until it's ratified, but he says he's confident it will help encourage more health support workers to stay in Manitoba. Less than 2 weeks after Hurricane Helene roared into the state, Hurricane Milton is now approaching the Florida Gulf Coast. Here is U.S. President Joe Biden.
The current path of the storm is expected to Tampa Bay area and cut directly across the state, east to west, with the potential for this storm to both enter Florida as a hurricane and leave Florida as a hurricane on the Atlantic coast. This could be the worst storm to hit Florida in over a century.
Milton is forecast to make land late tomorrow with winds at more than 200 kilometers an hour, torrential rain, and a potentially devastating storm surge. Hundreds of thousands of people are in the process of fleeing their homes. Hurricane Helene, which arrived on September 26th, killed at least 20 people in Florida. It also claimed more than 200 lives across the Carolinas, Georgia, and Tennessee. That is CBC News from Winnipeg. Your next local news is at 12:30 in Winnipeg today. Mainly sunny, a high of 19 for Brandon. Mainly sunny and a high of 22 in Thompson. Mainly cloudy and a high of 10. And in Churchill, a mix of sun and cloud and a high of 5.
Good afternoon, Manitoba. You're listening to Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1. It's Tuesday, October 8th. My name is Chloe Fries, and I'm filling in for Janet Stewart. Thank you for spending your afternoon with us. Coming up on today's show, we'll hear from the recreation programmer for the City of Winkler, who's going to share some exciting new opportunities for Winklerites to get up and stay active throughout the fall and winter months. Also coming up after 12:30 on our call-in conversation, we're talking about fire prevention and what you can do to prevent a fire from breaking out in your home. Do you have an emergency escape plan? We want you to call or text us after the 12:30 news. But first, the province has a plan to help create more affordable housing by providing $10 million in seed money to support a new investment trust fund. More details on that coming up. As you've been hearing in the news, in support of building affordable housing, the province is providing $10 million in seed money to the Business Council of Manitoba to support a new investment trust fund. This would mean nonprofits and other organizations can access the fund and the development experts in it to create more affordable housing. Premier Wab Kinew made the announcement this morning at a business and housing summit.
Since taking office, our team has housed more than 1,200 households here in Manitoba. And we use the term households conscientiously because these are not all single adults who were out on the streets. Some of these were families with kids who were sleeping under bridges and in encampments. And I say that explicitly so that we understand the human impact of the challenge that we're trying to grapple with here today. 1,200 is a big step, but any of us driving through downtown, living downtown, working downtown can see that the human need is still so great and there is so much more work to do. The way that we do difficult things here in Manitoba is by working on them together. And what we're announcing here today is the next step of that. Specifically, we're taking a Team Manitoba approach to tackling the challenges around homelessness and housing. And when we talk about that human need that we see outside of our car windows, our apartment windows, our office windows, It is going to take an all-hands-on-deck approach to get us to where we need to go, to ensure that every single person in Manitoba can have dignity, can have housing, and can have the supports that they need in order to be able to stay in that housing long-term and stay off the streets. And so specifically today, I'm very happy to announce that we are going to be unlocking the power of business to help us grapple with some of these challenges. One of the things that I've been so proud of over the past few years is to really develop some strong relationships with business leaders here in this great province. And one thing that has stood out to me time and time again through these important conversations is the community mindedness that unites our business leaders. These are folks who are successful, these are folks who run large enterprises, are large employers, and yet they choose to be here because they love this province and they love this community. And so in the conversations that we've had with the leadership of the Business Council of Manitoba, Bram Strain, Mike Pyle, we heard time and time again, we need to tackle homelessness and all the social interactions and issues that are tied up in that. We need a plan for addictions, we need a plan for mental health, we need a plan for housing, we need a plan for employment. Today we're announcing that we are providing a seed investment of $10 million to launch a new concept called a social REIT. This is a $10 million investment that we are going to be working on with the business leaders of this province to go out and use that to leverage additional capital to then go out into the community and add more housing so that we can create new rungs on the ladder that starts with us getting people off of the street and into social housing, but now we'll create those next steps into affordable and market-based housing. And with the other investments we've announced into the budget, hopefully someday, a path to home ownership. And so we have a plan. We have great partners at the civic, municipal, federal, First Nations, Métis levels to get people housed and to add to the housing stock here in Manitoba. So I want to say a sincere thanks to the team at the Business Council of Manitoba for bringing forward this innovative idea. Our team is happy to provide this seed investment. We know that business leaders are going to step up and match this commitment, not only in terms of time and energy, but also in terms of financial resources. This is going to be an innovation that Manitoba leads the way on, that I'm sure the rest of Canada is going to look to and say, yeah, that's how we can work together across government, business, community, Indigenous, and other levels of government to do good things for all of our citizens. And so Manitoba is a leader, and we're going to continue leading the way for the rest of the country. And very happy to make this financial commitment. Miigwech, merci, thank you very much.
That was Premier Wab Kinew this morning describing the new affordable housing plan. Mike Pyle is the Business Council chairman.
Our Premier often says the economic horse pulls the social cart. The business community in Manitoba, many of the so-called horses, have always invested in and cared a great deal for the social cart and the collective future of our province and its people. The Business Council of Manitoba was established in 1998 out of a shared vision for a better future for our province. Business leaders were driven by a desire to create a Manitoba where our children, grandchildren, and all future generations could build a happy and healthy life, work a job that fulfills them and sustains them, and invest back into their community for future generations to do the same. This collective will mandate to make Manitoba a better place to live, work, and invest, still guides the Business Council's actions today. We believe firmly that there is no getting ahead when anyone is left behind. The current affordable housing crisis in our province and our country as a whole calls for action. We all have a role to play in providing safe, affordable housing for all Manitobans, and the business community is no exception. We all know actions speak much louder than words, but informed actions make the most meaningful change. That's why we have gathered insights from various sectors and community groups regarding the barriers to increasing and maintaining affordable housing. Through this, we have identified a way the business community can contribute to addressing the affordable housing crisis in our province. We have taken action by creating a new affordable housing initiative that brings together the collective power and the resources of private, public, and community entities to ensure that whether you are on the horse or in the cart, we're moving forward together. No one is left behind, and everyone has access to safe, affordable housing in our province. The Manitoba Business Council is proud to establish the Collaborative Housing Alliance Real Estate Investment Trust, or CHAR, as it will be known for short. Its mandate is to deliver transformative, scalable, and sustainable, affordable and non-market housing in Manitoba. It will be structured and run as a real estate investment trust to partner in the ownership and operation of affordable housing driven by a socially responsible mandate. The CHAR structure allows everyone to leverage their strength. It will enable the public, private, and community sectors to collaborate, leading comprehensive, sustainable housing that consider all perspectives and address community needs.
That was Mike Pyle, chairman of the Business Council of Manitoba. And you can read more about the details of this plan and the full story on our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Hi, I'm Matea Roach, and I have a new show on CBC. It's called Bookends. Every week, authors from Canada and around the world will join me to discuss their latest books. We'll have best-selling authors and rising stars. Our conversations will be smart and surprising, because when the book ends, the conversation begins.
Bookends with Matea Roach premieres Sunday afternoon at 1:30 in Newfoundland, 3 Pacific, and on demand on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
15 minutes after 12 o'clock, you're listening to Radio Noon here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg, 97.9 FM in Brandon, and everywhere on the CBC Listen app. I'm Chloe Friesen, filling in for Janet Stewart. Thank you so much for joining us. Still lots to come here on Radio Noon. Coming up, we have our call-in conversation after the 12:30 news, and today we're talking about fire safety and prevention. What can you do to prevent a fire from breaking out in your home? Do you have an emergency escape plan? Or what questions do you have about how to best prevent fires in your home? We want you to call or text us. That's after the 12:30 news. Stay tuned. I will give those numbers that you need to call in. Also, coming up, we're going to take you to Winkler, where a new sport is making its recreation programming debut, and it's got soccer fans eager to hit the gym, but it's not quite soccer. We'll reveal what sport that is coming up here on Radio Noon. Taking a quick look at the forecast, it's feeling warmer across much of southern Manitoba today, with temperatures expected to reach as high as 22 in places like Brandon. It'll stay sunny and warm throughout the week in Winnipeg, with temperatures around 10 to 12 degrees in northern Manitoba. Today in Brandon, mainly sunny skies, a high of 22. Dauphin looking at mainly sunny skies as well, with a high of 20. In Thompson, mainly cloudy skies with fog patches dissipating near noon with a high of 10. And here in Winnipeg, mainly sunny skies, wind becoming southeast 20 early this afternoon and a forecasted high of 19. There's lots of ways to stay active in the city of Winkler, whether it's playing shinny, joining a walking club, or community badminton drop-in sessions. But there's a new sport making its Winkler debut this fall, futsal. And the request came right from the community itself. Here to tell us more about the sport and other recreation opportunities is Meg Dias. She's the recreation programmer for the city of Winkler. Welcome to the show, Meg.
Thanks for having me.
So why futsal? How did that come about?
We actually had a volunteer last year that came forward with and ran our rec volleyball program in this spring. And I got an email from her this summer, and she said, hey, I'm just throwing this idea out there, wondering if there's a chance that you'd be open to programming it. And so I decided that absolutely, if there was somebody interested, and she volunteered her time to facilitate it, because I certainly didn't know a lot about the sport. So I welcomed the idea and was able to find some gym space to make it happen.
So before we go any further, I guess we should explain to folks what futsal is if they don't know. You've done some research, Meg. What can you tell us about the sport of futsal?
Yeah, I immediately went to the Futsal Canada website because I didn't have any background, didn't know anything about futsal. So while it's its own sport, it's gaining traction here in Canada simply because it's really focused on skills and skill development that translates to soccer as well. So it's an indoor, they call it a court, so it's played on gym floor, no walls, which also is different from other indoor soccer programs. So yeah, with a smaller area, fewer players on the court at a time, and a smaller ball that's weighted differently than a soccer ball.
What have you heard about the appeal of futsal to people living in Winkler?
Well, it's funny. Somebody phoned yesterday and said, "Are you planning to open up another session?" And I thought, well, wow, we just put this one out there. I wondered what she was talking about. She said, "I'm just letting you know it's going to gain traction and be big really quick." And I think people are receptive to an indoor sport in the winter, something that's a little bit different. And I think if you're able to build on your skills, that translates to outdoor soccer in the spring and summer months, then definitely I'm sure there'll be a big group of people that will show interest. So.
Now, outdoor soccer, it's a really popular activity, especially for kids. And you see the kids running around the soccer fields when the season it comes up. But this is offered for people 18 and older. What went into that decision?
Well, I think they're trying to grow the futsal program in the schools. Rebecca, our volunteer, is actually a teacher in one of the schools here in Winkler. But we also do have a large adult recreational soccer group and recreational soccer teams here. We definitely are seeing a lot more adults taking part in outdoor soccer and looking for ways to keep active in the winter. So this became a good option.
And it sounds like people come to you with these ideas. People from the community come to you. What do you hear from them about what they want or what they're enjoying when it comes to recreation in Winkler?
I think diversity, I'm really always impressed at people willing to try new sports. I jokingly said that at the age of 30, I said I wouldn't try any new sports, and because I just was reluctant. But now I'm really learning from people how appealing it is to attempt something new and to see what we're capable of. And so I have tried new sports after the age of 30, but I think with sports like the uptake of pickleball is a good example in Canada. I think sometimes we just need to look at alternatives to traditional sport. We may not be able to have the time or the energy or the physical ability to play the sports that we used to. So I think especially with adults, we're looking for diversity and something fun and new to try. So definitely people are looking for outside the box thinking.
And Winkler is a actively growing community with a diverse population. How do you adapt programming to meet the needs of an ever growing and ever changing community?
I think meeting with people with curiosity, I think that has helped me. Something like cricket, that's a growing sport in our area. I have had no idea how it was played. I've watched it, go online, learn about it, talk to people about potentially doing clinics. Definitely those types of things. As long as we approach things with curiosity, I think people are willing to bring a sport to us, introduce us, and their passion for these games and sports and recreational opportunities normally it's a wave that starts, and we're able to ride that and grow interest in it for sure.
Meg, are there any other new programs or continued programs that are starting up this fall that you're really excited about?
Yeah, we have a female youth basketball program that's being run that I think is helpful for potentially some of the students that maybe don't necessarily make the high school teams, but we don't want to lose them in terms of them playing something that they're passionate about. So the youth basketball program is new. We continued with badminton. We continue to have indoor pickleball 4 nights a week at 2 different gyms run by the Winkler Pickleball Association. There's ample opportunity. Our field house is always in use. We have parent and talk programming through there. It's a busy place, and we want to continue to see it busy and even busier. We have a facility use agreement with Garden Valley School Division that allows us to do some programming in their gym spaces. So that allows me to try to offer different opportunities. So we're going to look at some creativity, but we'd also like to get people outside this year. We have some snowshoes that we were thankfully able to purchase through a grant program that without snow last year, they weren't put to good use. But if we're trusting the Farmer's Almanac, it looks like we're getting some snow this year. So I'm excited to start some programming using our snowshoes and our toboggan lending library and that type of thing.
Very cool. Now, there's a lot going on. So how can Winklerites learn more about the programs that are available and potentially sign up?
They can go to the City of Winkler website, cityofwinkler.ca, or they can go to the Meridian Exhibition Center website, and there's a link there to all of our sign up, and it also has all of our programming that is free as well listed there on our calendar of events.
Meg, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon and sharing all the cool things. I mean, I'm kind of inspired to try a new sport now in Winkler.
We can all do it. Trust me, I have.
Thank you, Meg.
Thank you very much.
Meg Dias is the recreation programmer for the City of Winkler.
The CBC Music Top 20. CBC Music Live. All right. Savor the flavor of the Francophone world on C'est Formidable. Experience the next wave of Indigenous music with Reclaim. The global sounds of frequencies. End your day or start your late night with music on CBC Radio 1. Weeknights at 11, 11:30 in Newfoundland, and on demand on CBC Listen.
You're listening to Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1. Hello and thank you to the team helping run this show. Dylan Longhurst is our show technician. Wendy Parker is our show director. Kevin Nipatebo is running the YouTube live stream. And if you have not attempted or just tried out watching on YouTube, hello, there's my face. You should try it out. It's a fun way to take in the show, and there's lots of gorgeous visuals happening. I'm not talking about my own face. I'm talking about the photos and other things there. I'm in radio for a reason. And Kevin's pointing at his face, so Kevin is a beautiful visual. Most definitely. All right, let's get to the next story. Connor Alexander was working in the board game industry when he felt called to make a game of his own. Alexander is Cherokee. He was getting tired of inaccurate, stereotyped depictions of Indigenous people in games. So he gathered a team of Indigenous writers to come up with a world Indigenous players could see themselves in, an alternate universe in which North America was never colonized. Together they created Coyote and Crow. It's a role-playing game similar to Dungeons & Dragons. This week on Unreserved, Alexander tells Rosanna Deerchild how the success of the game made way for him to become a full-time game designer. But he says he's most proud of the reactions he's gotten from Indigenous players.
We have had such fantastic response, both from the general gaming community, but then from spaces that I wasn't even really aware that it might hit. There was a therapist in New Mexico who was dealing with some Native kids who were troubled Native kids. They either had problems at home or had run into problems with the law. She was doing this sort of research and therapy through role-playing games. She was kind enough to report to me that they switched from Dungeons & Dragons to Coyote and Crow when it came out. And she said it only took a matter of months before she was having to tell the kids it was time to stop playing and to go home because they were enjoying themselves so much. And she reported that all of them connected more directly with their own Indigenous identities. And to me, I can't think of a better compliment than that. Like that's bigger than I ever expected a role-playing game to be. I certainly didn't expect it to do over $1 million on Kickstarter or to be my full-time job 4 years later. I'm so pleased. We've won a number of awards, which is really nice. But to me, the reaction from my fellow Indigenous cousins out there is far more important.
That's Connor Alexander. He's a game designer and the owner of Coyote and Crow Games. He is a citizen of the Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma. And you can hear more from Alexander and other Indigenous creatives in the fantasy world this week on Unreserved. The show airs today at 1 p.m. here on CBC Radio 1 just after Radio Noon ends. Or you can listen anytime on the CBC Listen app. Now we are heading into our call-in conversation after the 12:30 news, but we've got some time, so let's play some music. Francis Baptiste and his son live in a small apartment in East Vancouver. That relationship gets tested by the close quarters and the lack of close family. So Francis wrote this song to remind them to take care of each other and be kind. This is Francis Baptiste with If We Let It.
You're the bullet in the gun, but which way will you fly? And are you pointed at me or at our enemies? Or are we the same tonight? Or are we the same tonight? Life could be so easy if Life could be so easy if we let it. You're the hands upon the clock. What time is it now? Is it dusk or is it dawn? Is it time to be gone, or has our day just begun? Or has our day just begun? Life could be so easy if we let it. If we let it. Life could be so easy.
That was Francis Baptiste in East Vancouver with If We Let It. Francis's new album is out now. You're listening to Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1. I'm Chloe Friesen, filling in for Janet Stewart. Still to come are call-in conversations, so write down these numbers. After 12:30, you can call us at 204-780-0893, or you can text us 204-588-7355. We want your fire safety questions. Is your smoke alarm working properly? What questions do you have about preventing fires in your home? You can give us a call or a text at those numbers. But first, it's time for your CBC local news with Josh Crabb.
This is CBC News. Good afternoon. I'm Josh Crabb in Winnipeg. Ontario's Court of Appeal has denied Peter Nygaard bail as the former Winnipeg fashion mogul appeals his sexual assault convictions in Toronto and an 11-year prison sentence. The judge says Nygaard presents a flight risk as he faces charges in other jurisdictions. The 83-year-old was convicted of 4 counts of sexual assault last year after multiple women came forward with allegations dating from the 1980s until the mid-2000s. Winnipeg Police and the RCMP are taking to social media to help find this province's most violent offenders. The Manitoba Most Wanted website will feature some of the people the Manitoba Integrated Violent Offender Apprehension Unit is looking for. The RCMP has posted photos of their most wanted on social media in the past. It says that has led to some people turning themselves in. Inspector Jennifer McKinnon with the Winnipeg Police Major Crimes Unit says social media can be a powerful tool.
Offenders are aware of this. They've come to the detachments showing their pictures on their cell phones, as he mentioned. So people are going to be looking. We hope that you look, and we really sincerely request that you contact us or contact Crime Stoppers.
Crime Stoppers will offer enhanced rewards to people who provide information that leads to the arrest of people on the most wanted list. The apprehension unit says since May of 2023, it has arrested close to 500 violent offenders. Israel says its air defenses intercepted more than 130 rockets fired by Hezbollah in the space of an hour. It is the largest barrage yet in the cross-border fighting between the militant group and Israel. The attack comes as Israel sends more soldiers into Lebanon and continues the relentless bombing of Hezbollah targets. Aid workers say the operation has decimated hospitals and uprooted 1.2 million people. Jeremy Lawrence is spokesperson with the UN Human Rights Office.
We're seeing civilians pay the ultimate price. The devastation is beyond belief for all people in Lebanon as it is in Gaza. We can't let this happen again.
Israel says it won't stop fighting in Lebanon until its war objectives are met. And Manitobans now have an opportunity to get involved in creating affordable housing. The Collaborative Housing Alliance Real Estate Investment Trust has been developed by the Business Council of Manitoba. It will not only have money, but also expertise to help nonprofits create more housing. Bram Strain is the president and CEO of the Business Council of Manitoba. He says a $10 million seed money from the province was integral to getting it started.
Individuals, corporations, and foundations to contribute to that fund, to bring it to much more than the initial $10 million. But I have to be very clear that $10 million shows that trust, and it will encourage that further, deeper investment. So what the government's done today is critically important to its success.
Once established, nonprofits and other groups can use the funding and experts to help them convert and renovate existing buildings and build new units at below market values. That is CBC News from Winnipeg. Your next local news is at 1:30.
Thank you very much, Josh.
You're welcome.
That's CBC's Josh Crabb. I'm Chloe Friesen, filling in here on Radio Noon for Janet Stewart. A quick look at our forecast. Currently 16 degrees here in Winnipeg at the Forks. We're looking at mainly sunny skies, wind becoming southeast 20 early this afternoon with a high of 19. Across the province here, mainly sunny in Brandon, wind becoming south 20 early this afternoon, a high of 22. Dauphin, mainly sunny skies, a high of 20 degrees. For folks in Thompson, mainly cloudy skies with fog patches dissipating near noon, so they should be gone around now, a high of 10 degrees for you folks in Thompson. And again, here in Winnipeg, mainly sunny skies, wind becoming southeast 20 early this afternoon, and a high of 19. Now it is that time. It's time for our call-in conversation, and it is Fire Safety Prevention Week. Every year, the Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service hosts open houses at fire halls. And this year's theme is smoke alarms. So we want to hear from you. What questions do you have about how to best prevent fires in your home? What are you already doing to be fire smart and safe in your home? Call us at 204-780-0893 or text us 204-588-7355. We are joined by Doug Sinclair, Winnipeg Fire and Paramedic Service Public Education Coordinator. Doug, you're here to tell us what starts fires and what you should do if they break out.
Yeah, absolutely. Fires start for various reasons. It's statistically, I think a lot of fires start in kitchens, which is about 70% of the cause of fires. Again, cities vary. I can't give you exact statistics on that, but for the most part, we're looking at the preventive side of this.
Right. Okay, so this year's theme is smoke alarms. Why smoke alarms?
They are a tool that is a life-saving tool, and they're affordable, and they're very simple and very practical. And a small device as a smoke alarm can save your life.
How often are house fires caused by faulty alarms, or how dangerous could a faulty alarm be?
I don't know if they're caused by alarms. The cause is different, but in terms of not having a working smoke alarm, it could be very detrimental in terms of survival or injury or death in terms of fire.
Now, I'm going to have a question from myself personally that I feel like is, if I was listening, I would call in this question. I have a smoke alarm that I like to describe as sensitive. It's in the kitchen. Whenever I'm cooking, anything gets a little bit hot, it goes off. Is that something that's normal, that I should be like, yay, it's working? Or is it something I should think about replacing? How sensitive should a smoke alarm be?
Well, they should be sensitive. That's what we want. It's early detection, and that's the key to a smoke alarm. It's early detection in terms of, it detects it, the alarm goes off, and that's alerting us. And we can have a situation where we're even awake when that happens, but it's even more so important when we're sleeping, that because all the senses fall asleep, sense of smell, etc. And then the alarm is going to alert us. In regards to what you're saying with the kitchen, it's just more about placement of the alarm.
Okay.
It's good that it's working if you have it in your kitchen, and
Maybe
that's quite
I'm just
common.
a terrible cook, and I'm just cooking my food too thoroughly. I don't know.
Yeah, I can't comment on the cooking, but in terms of the alarm itself, where the kitchen is, it's probably a better idea to have it in a location where you're going to hear it outside of a sleeping area. So we highly recommend putting the alarm outside of a sleeping area up high, because smoke and heat rise. So we want that alarm being outside of a sleeping area where everyone can hear it.
Okay, that's fantastic advice. If you have a question, maybe similar to my own, where I'm wondering why is my smoke alarm so sensitive, give us a call, 204-780-0893, or you can text us at 204-588-7355. Now this is a question that I know I have, a lot of other people probably have. How do you know that your alarm is working properly? Should the light be on all the time, or what are those signs that you should be looking for when you just walk past your smoke alarm?
Really good question. And there's various types of alarms. There are different alarms. There's expensive alarms. There's cheaper alarms. Some alarms do have a light, maybe a green light that you can see. But for the most part, it's about the noise it makes. So you want that in a proper location, as we talked about, up high, because the smoke and heat rise, outside of a bedroom. And for the most part, the testing is very important. There's test buttons on those, and they're actually a very simple tool. They're very simple to test, and so we want to do that on a monthly basis. We highly recommend testing the smoke alarm every month.
Now, what about if you're a renter? How do you make sure that the owner of the property has proper alarms in place? Is that something renters should be concerned about?
100%. There's a bylaw of Winnipeg, City Winnipeg fire prevention bylaw in regards to landlords having working smoke alarms for the residents or the renters. And so, if you're renting, you have the right to call your landlord, and just if you have a concern about the smoke alarm, you definitely want to bring that up. But you can test that without the landlord doing that. So we highly recommend that you learn about the alarm, whatever alarm you have, you test that alarm, and then if there's a concern, bring it up with your landlord immediately.
Now, here in Manitoba, the weather can be a bit temperamental. We have power outages now and again. Just this wind this past weekend caused some power outages. What if your alarm is hardwired and there's a power outage? What should folks know about how their alarm is wired, and what should they do in those situations?
Yeah, another good question. Those alarms that are hardwired, they're monitored alarms as well. Well, most are. I shouldn't say that, because there are some people who don't have a monitored alarm company with their alarm panel, but there's a lot of alarms that have battery backups as well. So that's another thing to take into consideration when you're looking at the alarm. Does it have a battery backup with the hardwired in it? Because if like you say, there's a power outage, like we want to make sure there's a battery backup in that alarm. So that'll give you that protection when the power goes up.
If you have a question about how your fire alarm works, or when you need to replace it, or just the situation that you're living with, maybe you're a renter and you have questions there, you can phone us 204-780-0893 or text at 204-588-7355. Now, Doug, besides smoke alarms, what are the other main things that people can do to keep themselves and their families and their loved ones safe?
Well, one is the planning and the fire safety plan. And part of the fire safety plan is going over it. So, and I talk about this often. We were at a school, actually Hastings School in St. Vital. We had a kickoff event, and we talked to all the kids about smoke alarms. And we want them all to go home, check the alarms with the adult in their home. And it's very important that they go over the plan, because we use kids in schools as a good example. They do 10 fire drills a year. So they're well versed on it. When there's a fire drill, they know exactly what to do. They don't panic, but they get up immediately. They leave. They're not picking up items. They're leaving. They're going to a meeting place, and there's an accountability system. So the schools are probably the best cross-section in terms of, practicing a fire drill.
The kids are probably teaching their parents when they go home.
100%. And that's what we want in the home. So we want to make sure that, it's one thing for school kids to practice 10 times. We should be doing the same. We should be practicing the fire drill in our home. Like, what do we do when they sound the alarm at 1 or 2 in the morning? Are the kids waking up? Can you hear it? Do we have an exit that we would go to, and do we have a meeting place? What do we do when we get to the meeting place?
Right.
Or that's where we're calling 911.
Yeah, that's something that I remember so clearly about grade school and even high school. You do those fire drills all the time, but yeah, it's something that we tend to forget about when it comes to our own homes. When it comes to, I guess I'll call it an escape plan. Is that the right word?
Right word, yes.
What needs to be a part of that plan that people might miss?
I always like to do we recommend a floor plan, like a grid. You can draw it out. You can find things online, just like a map of your house, basically an overhead or overview site of what your home looks like. And then you map out where the windows and doors are and things like that. We want to make sure that another important part of the plan is that, could you access a door? It's highly recommended that you close the door when you're sleeping. If that alarm's going off, that will give you some protection from smoke or fire. As well, windows. It's very important that you have access to your window. So when's the last time that you open your window? Could you slide it open? Could you push a screen out? If you're in the 3rd or 4th floor of an apartment or a condo or whatever, we don't expect people to jump out windows, but we want them to slide a window open, push out a screen so they can signal firefighters, and the fire crews have a good idea where you are when they do a search and rescue.
No, that's great advice. And we actually have a call on the line. We have Shinna. Hello. Thanks for calling in. What do you have as a question?
Hello, my name is Shinna. I reside in Brandon. So I was wondering, because I have a fire alarm in my apartment. It usually trip on just like that, without no smoke, no cooking. And then we feel probably it's the batteries. We had all the batteries changed, and we had somebody come look at it, and he said everything is fine. And then the person leaves. Less than a week, it's back to the same thing. It starts tripping on and disturbing us at night. I was wondering if there's anything else we could do about this.
Okay, thanks for the call, Shinna. So Shinna's fire alarm just goes off without any prompting. What's going on there?
And that happens, and sometimes the alarms are faulty.
Okay.
Or just with age. I'm not sure how old your alarm is, but there is a manufacturer's label on every alarm, and we highly recommend that you change the alarm within 10 years. They're good for about 10 years. If you have lithium batteries, you don't have to change a battery, but those are the same up to 10 years. But it doesn't mean that you can't have an alarm that's 6 months or a year old and it's not faulty. So all those things, all those steps that you've taken, you might want to just look at maybe replacing the alarm.
Okay, great advice. We got a text from Leanne. The question is, do you replace carbon monoxide detectors the same way as smoke alarms? She says that I heard you can place them outdoors on occasion to reset them. Is that true?
That's a really good question, and we used to get that a lot when I was in on the front lines. We go to a lot of those types of calls where the CO alarm's going off,
Right.
and we put it outside in the mailbox, or we recommend putting it outside in the fresh air. And it does reset it sometimes, but to answer the question, the rules and all the dynamics of a smoke alarm are the same as a CO. The only difference is that a smoke alarm will beep 3 times. When you hear that beep, if you're sleeping in the middle of the night, you hear that 3 beeps, there's a problem. So we want to make sure we react. With CO, you're going to hear 4 beeps. So they're the same thing. The only difference is also smoke alarm reacts to smoke. It's placed up high where the smoke and heat rise. CO doesn't have to be placed that high because of the element itself isn't that light where it's not going to travel up to the ceiling. So the CO will detect carbon monoxide, and you can't smell it. It's tasteless. It's odorless. You can't see it. So it's a very important device to have in your home.
Now, if you have a fire safety or even CO2 safety question, give us a call, 204-780-0893, or text us, 204-588-7355. There's no dumb questions here. Doug is very kind. I can promise you that. I asked my silly question already. Now, Doug, what are the most common causes of accidental fires in the home? You mentioned the kitchen earlier as a spot, but what would the causes be?
Well, that's one of them, and it's amazing how fast things get away on you, especially on a stove, right? So kitchens are probably the main thing where you got to make sure that your elements are off. But away from the kitchen, things like candles, be very careful with candles. Don't leave a candle unattended in a room. Another one is power cords or power bars or outlets or overloaded outlets to start an electrical fire. That's more common now with all the devices we have. And last time I was here, we talked about having an appropriate power bar where you have, if it's got 4 outlets, you have 4 devices, not an extra couple devices plugged in on the side.
A power cord into a power cord?
Yes, basically. Okay. So we want to keep those as minimal as possible to prevent an electrical fire.
How do you know when there's too many things plugged in to a singular outlet?
Well, a personal story, I seen it with my own mom, my mother's place. She had it like that too, and I had to go clean it up for her a little bit. So it's just, visually, you look at it, and again, you count the number of outlets that are in that. You can get ones they're fairly large that are 4, 8, 12, 16 outlets on there, and that's great. And they have surge protection, things like that, right? So you don't have to go spend a ton of money on it, but like you don't want to plug in, again, example, 4, 8 devices into something that is meant for 4.
We have some very large power bars here at CBC Manitoba for when we do live broadcasts, and I always wonder, is this too much as I'm plugging in all of our equipment? So that's good to know. What should you do? We talked about making an escape plan. We talked about hearing that fire alarm and reacting to it, testing it. If a fire does break out, what should you do?
Really good question. And I go back to the practice part. The practice part is very essential, right? Because when there's a situation where there's smoke and heat, it changes dramatically. And it's amazing in your own home that you can get lost, or you're going to your bedroom every night, and that you think you kind of know the steps, what's happening, but the minute you throw some heat and some smoke in there, it changes everything dramatically. And just your visual part depends on how heavy the smoke is. So we always recommend doors being closed, but if the smoke alarm's going off, it's something you need to react to immediately. Where is it? What's happening? If there's smoke conditions, that's something that you have to navigate. Like, you have to stay low and go, we say. We like to use that rhyme where if there's smoke conditions, obviously early detection, it's probably going to be light gray smoke that's built up. But again, it depends on the nature of the fire. But those are situations where you can kind of get under the smoke and go. But if it's a condition where maybe the smoke's a little thicker, heavier, you might have to close a door. Now you have to come up with an alternative route or plan of what I need to do.
What about folks in apartment buildings or multi-level buildings? What should they keep in mind if the smoke alarm does go off and they're noticing smoke?
I love that question because our fire crews know this, that we go to different, we can use hotels or high rises as an example, apartment blocks. The alarm's ringing and there's 3 or 4 people outside. And that to me is a real, what's happening in this situation where people aren't coming outside. Like once that alarm goes off, you need to go outside. You could be on the third floor and you don't know what's happening under you. You could be in the 7th floor. The situation could be on the 3rd or 4th floor. We don't know what's happening underneath us, around us. So that's where it's very essential when that alarm goes off that we get outside. And I know we talk about cooking. It might happen 3 or 4 times, but it's that one time where there's a real fire where we really get into trouble. So for people who live in apartments, that's one thing. High rises, things like that. You need to get out, get to your meeting place. Even if it's several times, the problem will get corrected eventually.
What about using elevators?
Elevators do not use. Okay. So if you're in a high rise, that's meant for firefighters only. They have special keys and they need access to that elevator. So we have to know where stairwells are, and we have to have that plan. So that can be really daunting if you're up high and firefighters are using elevators and you have to get down 7 flights of stairs. So, but again, that's something that could save your life.
All right, Doug, we have a bunch of text questions here, so let's go through them. Leah asks, do you have to replace hardwired smoke alarms every 10 years as well?
Good question. And the answer to that would be yes, because those also have a lifespan. So we did a little bit of a community project in one area of the city near the university, and we found that a lot of those homes were hardwired, and the folks were unaware that a lot of those, that the build in that area was around 2008.
Okay.
So they were just kind of unaware that it was, we have a new home, we built this, the smoke alarm came with it, and they didn't really check the manufacturer's alarm. So it's a great question, but that rule would apply as well. It'd be 10 years. You want to look at replacing the hardwired alarm.
Okay. Another question, do you recommend fire blankets for the kitchen?
We're just getting that. We're getting asked that question often, and a fire blanket, I'm not super schooled on that quite yet. I know it's a kindly highly touted right now in terms of it's fairly simple. I also have, the comparison is a smoke alarm takes about as much time. Or sorry, a fire extinguisher, my bad. A fire extinguisher takes about as much time. You pull the pin, squeeze, and aim. So it's definitely a safety device that you would throw over a pot of food, but it's not necessary. If you have fire extinguishers and working smoke alarms, those will give you plenty of safe measures to put in place.
This is a really good question. This is Jason. What if someone can't afford a smoke alarm? Are there any programs out there to replace them?
There is, and I love that question as well. We have a Safe Family program. You can access it through the Winnipeg Fire Paramedics Safety or Winnipeg Fire Paramedics Service.ca website, and there is a Safe Family program that we will provide a smoke alarm for people who don't have the means.
Okay, good to know. Ooh, another text coming. I love all these texts, especially I know that sometimes people don't want to ask questions over the phone because they might just be embarrassed like I am to ask some questions. So text is a beautiful thing. Where can I take my fire extinguisher to refill?
That's another thing you can look online. There's fire safety companies that will have you can basically bring the old fire extinguisher to these companies and they'll discard them.
Is it refill or replace?
Yeah, they can refill and they can replace. It depends on they have to do an inspection of that particular device, and they'll look at it and say, we can put this back in service, or you can get them refilled, or you discard them, and there'll be places that will discard them for you. And a lot of them are fire safety companies.
Okay. Is there a cost to it?
That I can't answer.
Okay.
In terms of the recycling component of handling an old extinguisher and getting a new one, I don't believe there's a cost on that.
Okay. If you have a question to add, you can call us 204-780-0893, or maybe you just want to gloat about how good your escape plan is, how well thought out it is. Do you have a map? I would love to see a map. You can also text us with questions, 204-588-7355. Now, Doug, the Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service, you're hosting open houses starting this Saturday. What happens at these events? What will people learn?
Well, they'll learn about kind of the life of a firefighter and what's it like in the station, the apparatus. They'll get a chance to see and interact with firefighters that are on duty that day. And they'll see the apparatus, and there's equipment that if you have children, they can kind of take a look at what's going on in the machine. And the crews are really great with interacting with the public. And if you have any fire-related questions, you can ask them as well. And so it's kind of like a few different things going on. You can talk to some firefighters, get some information about fire safety and things like that, or take a look at the equipment, or just kind of talk to people that they're doing the work in our community.
Can a very curious 26-year-old come and ask questions and touch the fire truck?
100%. Yes. We love if you would come.
Perfect. Okay, another question. This is going back to my own childhood. Will Sparky be there?
We don't have Sparky scheduled for an appearance.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. I was just checking in. Sparky was there yesterday.
Yeah.
So he's busy. He's booked and busy.
Yeah. Sparky was busy interacting with 250 kids yesterday. So
that'll take a lot of energy out of you.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know. I just had this flashback of the firehouse in Morden, Manitoba, where I grew up. And Sparky would always make an appearance, and I'm big fan of Sparky. What kind of questions? What are the most common questions that people have when you have these open houses? What are people most curious about? I think a lot of times it's just young families and kids for the most part coming, and they just kind of want to see what it's all about. Like seeing what when they see fire trucks going. A lot of times is that the public see the apparatus kind of barreling down the street with the lights on and right.
Sirens blaring. They're like, wow, it's very intimidating. It's kind of scary in a way, but they know that there's something going on and there's some kind of danger. And this is just an opportunity for them to see it when it's kind of not rolling and it's not moving, and what's on that machine. Like, what are they doing, and how does this whole thing work if there's a fire or there's a medical emergency? And so it's a great opportunity for everyone to see the equipment and to answer the question. I'm not sure exactly the questions. I worked a few open houses, and it was more like personal, like, how long have you been a firefighter? What,
Yeah. What is that like, sharing your profession with people in the public?
It's great. The kids are amazing. They ask a lot of real interesting questions, right? Some of them, like, how long have you been in fire, or how long have you been firefighter for? Like, they ask them about some of the calls, like, what's the biggest fire you've been in, that type of stuff. So it's kind of, wow, interesting.
Oh, very cool. Well, Doug, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, answering all of our questions. Always appreciate it, and enjoy those open houses.
Thank you for having me.
Doug Sinclair is the Winnipeg Fire and Paramedic Services Public Education Coordinator.
Can't see the light. It's been out for a while. Feel like a shell of myself, scattered for miles. I know it's wrong, I can't hold back. Been strung along for so long, but I've lost track. Spin my wheels, I'm losing sight. Gonna be another lonely night within these walls. Take comfort in these walls. This living room been empty for years. All through the cracks I see the moon and the spirits that lived here. It may be wrong, it may be right. Gonna be another lonely night within these walls. Take comfort in these walls. Maybe it's the way that I lie, keeps my hands tied. I'll never break free. I'm feeling out of my mind. I don't know why these walls give me comfort.
That's Winnipeg's Ariel Posen with These Walls. Thanks for tuning in to Radio Noon. Thanks for all those questions. It's not every day you get to just ask questions to a firefighter, so that was very fun. Faith Fundal has joined us now in the studio for a little, I was going to say an up to speed today. What's going on?
We will get you up to speed. Manitoba's Integrated Violent Offender Apprehension Unit has launched what it's calling Manitoba's Most Wanted website. And it is an integrated task force that includes the Winnipeg Police Service and the RCMP. We'll hear more about the list, and we'll hear from a criminologist about how effective these lists are in curbing crime. Stay tuned for that conversation, still to come.
Thanks, Faith. Very interesting. Up to Speed takes place 3 till 6 p.m., so make sure you tune in. CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, or anywhere on your CBC Listen app. Thank you to Dylan Longhurst, our technician, Wendy Parker, our show director, and Kevin Nipatebo is our YouTube live stream connoisseur. Thanks for tuning in. Unreserved is up next.